are always, I think this is the same for most people, the ones who showed compassion and the ones who pushed me to go farther than I thought I could. I think that usually sticks out for most people.
Teachers that were the most impressive to me, or where I learned the most, were those who talked to you like you were at the same level as them. They didn't talk to you as a student, they talked to you as, wow, can you believe this happened, and what, I like that. I try really, really hard never to talk to my students as if we weren't equals. I always believe, I don't care how old you are, we're equals.
Mr. Abrahamson, 7th grade, he had us stand up on top of our desks, and we had to yell lines from a book, The Chocolate Wars, that we were reading. And my line was, "I have guts," and I had to shout that as loud as I could. And I was a particularly shy student, and it kind of broke that hesitation in me to engage and to participate in being a thoughtful student. And from that moment on, my education experience changed.
Mrs. Lyday was my science teacher and art teacher. And I remember when I was in 1st grade feeling like I wasn't a reader because my father was in the military, so we moved around. I went to 3 different 1st grades. And when I think back about becoming a reader, my memory is I couldn't do it, and that it was very painful, that 1st grade, 2nd grade, and then my family moved to Wichita Falls, Texas, and I went to this school for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, and I still remember Mrs. Lyday, and whatever she did, I turned into a student that was very capable. Something about her, she was firm, I guess expectations were clear. She made science really fun, and I just remember I fell in love with being a student from her classroom.
It was Don Ivy. I mean, he was the toughest teacher I had. And I had the luck or bad luck of he had my mom. It was his first year teaching at the high school. It was my mom's, senior year. So, the minute I walked in and I know your mom and all this, but he was the toughest guy. He didn't mess around in class. He has a photographic memory. You couldn't get anything by him. But at the same time, you always knew he was there. You always knew he was going to work for you. He was going to do everything he could to let you find success.
There is one that is most definitely still in my heart, and when I walk on this campus, I think of her, and that's Mrs. Funk. And she was my English teacher at Oak Harbor High School. She's passed over, and that's probably why I have more tears, because I miss her. It wasn't necessarily the contents of the class, the curriculum. Those are important, I guess, but it was just her taking the time to talk to me and to inspire me to read a book that I know I cannot remember today, but just that she took that extra moment, or 10 minutes, and just talk to me and tell me that I can read the book, that I can be successful in reading the book if that's what it was and doing whatever the assignment was. But right now I have no clue what that book is. I just know that she inspired me just with the ability to be able to. Mrs. Funk, Oak Harbor High School. Yeah.
A chemistry teacher in high school that I worked for as an instructional assistant or TA, teaching assistant. And at the time, I never would have dreamed that I was going to be a chemistry teacher. It just wasn't something that was in my plan. But I stayed in touch with him over the years. And in fact, I have a lot of his books. His books inspired me to create interesting labs, to get better at doing demonstrations of exciting chemistry things. And so he had a tremendous impact on me, and in fact, I've been in touch with his kids. I spoke at his funeral. There have been a lot of people like that, but I'd say he really stuck out.
There was one, Bill Chandler in Central Washington University, that he had relevancy in the things that he taught, because he came from advertising. He owned an advertising agency. And so he just kind of threw everything else away and said, this is how it really is. And then just that connection, and then we just kind of built a relationship from there, and it became, everyone's kind of like a friend with him, more of a good friend compared to, oh, I'm the teacher up here and you need to stay in your seat, you're a student. So I'd say Bill was a big part of my life and just developing into who I am in the classroom.
Fifth grade, I was fifth grade, and I had Mrs. Bean, Helen Bean. I'll never forget her. She was fantastic. And the thing that I really liked about her was she was very strict but very fair. And so when she called you on something, you knew it. And I had been caught cheating on something, and another student had turned me in, and she brought me into the center room. And I'll never forget it. She just laid into me. She completely told me, this is not acceptable. I can't believe you're doing this. Just the same kinds of things that when I find a student cheating, it's the same kinds of things that I find myself telling them. But what really did it for me was that she told me, she said, I know you can do better. And for her to say that was really a big deal, because I felt it was honest, that she really did believe that I could do better, that I could do this without cheating. And that was powerful for me. It was very inspirational.
When I got into having to do algebra, I just could not do it. And then finally I had a coach, and his name was Coach Carter. And Coach Carter just looked at me and said, algebra is just a different language. It's the language of math. Don't you take French? I know you take French because I've seen you in class. And I said, yes. He said, well, how are you doing in French? I said, fine, I love it. And he said, just think of algebra as the language of math. And he worked with me in the morning, he worked with me in the evening, tirelessly solving problems. And he just really took my anxiety and fear away. And when I figured out that I could do algebra, I just took off. And then after that, I really enjoyed math.
I think one that kids here might relate to was my AP teacher, my AP English teacher. And part of it was her unraveling the mystery of analysis of literature by not just discussion of concepts, but by showing us that in English there are established formulas as much as there are in math. And a lot of people don't realize that English, and I'm not talking about grammar, I'm talking about English analysis and English writing, is very, very formulaic, and it can be broken down that way. And that was exciting for me to see.
Irv Broughton taught me to think. I truly believe I had to go all the way to my junior year in college before I had a teacher who really challenged me to think creatively, to do what I had sort of probably been asking for the whole time, of break me out of the box, don't give me format, make me think creatively, brainstorm, just be free with your creative thinking. And then when I finally was hit by it, by Irv Broughton, I and most of the class thought he was insane. But as we got into the program, it was trying to break us down of the confines of thinking along logical lines. He said something at the time. He said, you should never get stuck for ideas. You should never be stuck for ideas, because ideas are all around you. And to this day, whenever I get writer's block or can't think of anything, he said, just grab two items that are near you and start trying to figure out how you can relate one to the other. And just get your brain working.
In grad school, Mark Trail and Sarah Roberts, they're both really just quirky, artsy people. And what I loved about Sarah Roberts was that she focused on why. I would bring artwork to her and I'd show her what I'd done, and everything, well, why'd you do this? And why'd you do that? And why'd you do the other thing? And you really had to explain everything that you did, and everything that was in your art piece and why it was there. And then Mark Trail was just great, because he kind of made me feel like there was nothing that you couldn't do. if you wanted to do things like control a piece of music based on your heartbeat, he'd be like, yeah, you can do that, sure, here's how we can do it, let's look it up and let's find out how to do it. And we look up how to do it, or we get like parts and start putting stuff together and make stuff work.